Hey BioTeam. So you guys have learned that if a cell wants to get energy, it needs to use a molecule called ATP. And so to get energy from an ATP molecule, the cell will break off a phosphate group onto another molecule, providing it with energy. And so what's left over is called ADP, adenosine diphosphate, just two phosphate groups. And so this is kind of like a dead battery that needs to be rephosphorylated. A phosphate group needs to get added back on before it can be used again. And so the topic of the next couple of lessons has to do with the process that does this phosphorylation, the process of respiration. And so respiration is just breaking down of our food to phosphorylate ADP into ATP. And the specific food molecule that gets used in the process of respiration is the sugar molecule glucose. So there's two types of respiration that our bodies will use. The first type is aerobic respiration, which uses oxygen to help break down the glucose and recharge the ADP into ATP. And so the formula for aerobic respiration, you can see that happening here. We've got a molecule of glucose that gets broken apart by 6 molecules of oxygen to phosphorylate 36 molecules of ATP. And the byproducts of aerobic respiration are carbon dioxide and water. And so this type of respiration is generally what we think of when we think of respiration. When we think of what we breathe in oxygen. And when we think of what we breathe out carbon dioxide molecules and water droplets. And so aerobic respiration happens over a couple of steps. The first step is called glycolysis, which the root lys means to break, and glyco, the root, means sugar. And so glycolysis is just the splitting apart of the glucose molecule, and in the process that phosphorylates to ATP, and this occurs in the cytoplasm. The second step of aerobic respiration is called the Krebs Cycle, or the citric acid cycle, and that occurs in the mitochondria, and that phosphorylates another 2 ATP. Then the remaining 32 ATP that get phosphorylated occurs in the last step of aerobic respiration, called the electron transport chain. And that also occurs across the mitochondrial membrane. So we'll do a deeper dive on all 3 of these steps later on in this unit, but this is the overview of aerobic respiration. The other type of respiration is anaerobic respiration, which is phosphorylating ADP into ATP without the use of oxygen. And so anaerobic respiration starts with the same step as aerobic respiration. It starts with glycolysis. But without the presence of oxygen, our body can't break down glucose past this step. So instead, it will do lactic acid fermentation, which produces the waste molecules of lactic acid. And so this is what we do in our muscle cells when oxygen isn't present. And this occurs in some microorganisms as well. In other organisms, after glycolysis, if there's no oxygen present, they will do alcoholic fermentation, in which they turn the leftovers of glycolysis into ethanol instead of lactic acid and carbon dioxide. But that's it. At this point, you guys have some practice problems. We'll see you next class.